Before we begin, please remember that this presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for official LSAT preparation materials or professional guidance. The strategies discussed are based on my analysis and experience, and your individual results may vary. You're staring at the screen. The clock is ticking down, a tiny, merciless drumbeat in the corner of your vision. You've just read a paragraph about the migratory patterns of the Arctic tern or the economic policies of the late Ming Dynasty, and your brain feels like it's full of static. The question asks you to identify the flaw in the reasoning. You read the paragraph again, and a third time. The words start to swim. It feels like a magic trick, a shell game designed specifically to make you feel stupid. You look at the answer choices, A, B, C, D. They all sound plausible. They all sound wrong. You feel that familiar knot of dread in your stomach, you guess B, and you move on, knowing you probably just threw away a point that could be the difference between your dream school and a rejection letter. If that sounds even remotely familiar, I want you to take a deep breath. Because that feeling of confusion, of being tricked and outsmarted by the test, is not your fault. And in the next few minutes, I am going to completely rewire the way you see these questions. We are going to strip away the intimidating language and the bizarre topics and expose the simple, predictable machine working underneath every single logical reasoning question. This isn't about memorizing 100 different tricks. This is about learning the one core skill that makes all the other tricks obsolete. It's about turning you from the person being tested into the person who can see exactly how the test was built. The number one mistake nearly everyone makes is reading these little paragraphs for comprehension. You read them like you're reading a textbook or a news article, trying to absorb the facts. Stop. From this moment on, you are no longer a reader. You are a detective arriving at a crime scene. You are an engineer disassembling a machine. Your job is not to believe what you're told. Your job is to figure out how you're being told. You are here to analyze an argument. That's it. That's the entire secret. Every single one of the roughly 50 logical reasoning questions you'll face on your LSAT, from the first to the last, is just an argument. Sometimes it's a good argument, sometimes it's a terrible one, but it's always an argument. And every argument in the known universe, from a toddler demanding a cookie to a Supreme Court justice writing a dissent, is made of the same three basic parts. If you can learn to spot these three parts in under 20 seconds, you will have a superpower that 99% of test takers lack. These three parts are the conclusion, the premise, and the assumption. Let's break them down. First, the conclusion. This is the whole point of the argument. It's the main claim the author is trying to convince you of. It's the destination on their GPS. It's what they want you to believe when you're done reading. Think of it as the what. What is this person trying to sell me? Often, the test makers will give you clues, little indicator words like therefore, thus, consequently, hence, or so. When you see these words, a giant neon sign should light up in your head that says, conclusion here. For example, the company's profits have doubled this year, therefore, the CEO deserves a massive bonus. The conclusion is that the CEO deserves a massive bonus. The rest is just the setup. Your first job as a detective is to find that main point. Isolate it. Put a mental box around it. This is the center of the universe for this question. Second, the premise. If the conclusion is the what, the premise is the why. It's the evidence, the facts, the reasons the author gives to support their conclusion. It's the proof they offer up to make you believe their main point. You can spot premises with indicator words too, words like because, since, for, and as a result of. Let's go back to our example. The company's profits have doubled this year, therefore, the CEO deserves a massive bonus. The conclusion was, the CEO deserves a massive bonus. Why should we believe that? The premise is, because the company's profits have doubled this year. The premise is the evidence offered. It's the foundation the author is trying to build their conclusion on. So we have the conclusion, the main point, and the premise, the evidence. But there's a third invisible piece that holds the whole thing together. And this is where the LSAT lives and breathes. This is where they set all their traps. This is the assumption. The assumption is the unstated belief that connects the premise to the conclusion. It's the logical leap the author makes without telling you. It's the secret glue holding their argument together. In our CEO example, the author presents the premise profits doubled, and jumps to the conclusion the CEO deserves a bonus. What's the unstated belief that connects those two ideas? The assumption is that the CEO is personally responsible for the profits doubling. Think about that. Is that necessarily true? What if a major competitor went bankrupt this year? What if the economy was just booming and everyone's profits doubled? What if a team of brilliant engineers invented a new product and the CEO had nothing to do with it? The argument assumes a direct causal link between the CEO's actions and the company's success. This assumption is the weak point. It's the shaky foundation. And virtually every LSAT logical reasoning question, whether it's asking you to strengthen, weaken, or find the flaw, is targeting this unstated assumption. Let's use a ridiculously simple example to make this crystal clear. The argument. My dog Fido is a genius because he knows how to fetch my slippers. Okay, let's break it down like a detective. First, what's the conclusion? What's the main point? My dog Fido is a genius. Easy. Second, what's the premise? What's the evidence given? Because he knows how to fetch my slippers. Got it. Now the most important part. What is the unstated assumption? What is the logical leap that connects fetching slippers to being a genius? The assumption is that the ability to fetch slippers is a valid indicator of genius in a dog. Once you see that assumption, you own the argument. You can do anything you want with it. If I ask you to weaken the argument, you attack that assumption. You could say, most dogs can be easily trained to fetch slippers. It's a common trick, not a sign of genius. Boom. The argument is destroyed. If I ask you to strengthen the argument, you support the assumption. You could say, scientific studies have shown that the complex spatial reasoning and memory required to locate and retrieve specific objects like slippers is found only in the top 1% of canine intellects. Now the argument sounds much stronger. Do you see the power in this? That simple, almost silly Fido argument is built with the exact same DNA as the most complicated, terrifying question on the LSAT. They'll try to hide it. They'll use dense academic language. They'll talk about medieval literature, or quantum mechanics, or corporate tax law. It doesn't matter. It is all a distraction. It is window dressing designed to intimidate you. Your job is to ignore the noise, ignore the fancy topic, and find the simple structure underneath. What is the main point they're trying to sell me? What evidence are they giving me? And what are they secretly assuming to connect the two? This is the master key. This is the foundation for everything else. In this series, we're not going to just look at a bunch of random questions. We are going to train you to develop a kind of X-ray vision, the ability to look at any paragraph of text and instantly see the skeleton of conclusion, premise, and assumption holding it up. Once you can do that, the questions themselves become almost trivial. You'll already know the argument's weak spot before you even read the question. You'll be able to predict the correct answer before you even see the answer choices. This is the shift from being a passive test taker to an active test breaker. And it all starts with mastering this one fundamental skill. And that skill is becoming an architect in reverse. Instead of building something up, you're going to learn how to deconstruct it, to see the hidden blueprint behind every single argument the LSAT throws at you. Every logical reasoning question is built on a simple chassis, a core argument. And every argument, from a Supreme Court opinion to a toddler demanding more cookies, is made of just two basic parts: the conclusion and the premise. That's it. That's the entire game. Your ability to instantly, almost instinctively, separate these two components is the master key that unlocks everything else. Let's start with the star of the show, the conclusion. The conclusion is the entire point of the argument. It's what the author wants you to believe. It's the destination they're trying to drive you to. If an argument were a sales pitch, the conclusion is the buy now button. If it were a court case, the conclusion is the final verdict. Guilty or not guilty. Every other word, every other phrase in the passage is there for one reason and one reason only: to make you accept that conclusion. If you don't know what the conclusion is, you're lost. You're trying to critique a movie without knowing the plot. You're wandering in the woods with no compass. Finding the conclusion is your absolute, non-negotiable first priority. So how do you find it? Well, sometimes the LSAT writers are nice. They give you signposts, little indicator words that scream, "Hey, the main point is right here." You need to burn these words into your brain. Words like therefore, thus, consequently, hence. So, it follows that. As a result, clearly, when you see one of these, a massive alarm bell should go off in your head. What follows is almost always the conclusion. The company's profits have doubled, therefore. The CEO deserves a bonus. The conclusion, the CEO deserves a bonus. Simple. But here's the thing. The LSAT is not a nice test. On harder questions, those signposts will disappear. And this is where most people get stuck. They read a block of text and everything just blends together. They can't tell the main point from the evidence. But you won't have that problem, because you're going to use a simple, devastatingly effective tool called the therefore test. It works like this. When you have two sentences or ideas, let's call them A and B, you mentally stick the word therefore between them and see which way makes more sense. Let's try it with a classic non-LSAT debate. Pineapple on pizza. Imagine an argument. Pineapple is a fruit. Sweet and savory flavors are a classic culinary pairing. Pineapple belongs on pizza. Okay, no indicator words. So what's the conclusion? Let's use the therefore test. Does this make sense? Pineapple belongs on pizza, therefore it is a fruit? No, that's ridiculous. One doesn't cause the other. Let's flip it. Pineapple is a fruit, and sweet and savory flavors are a classic pairing, therefore pineapple belongs on pizza. Yes, absolutely. That is a logical, even if you disagree with it, sequence of reasoning. The first two statements are being used as evidence to prove the third. Boom! You found your conclusion. Pineapple belongs on pizza. This test works every single time. It forces you to identify the logical relationship between the sentences, revealing the core structure of the argument. Once you've found the conclusion, everything else is a premise. A premise is the evidence. It's the support. It's the why you should believe the conclusion. If the conclusion is the verdict, the premises are the witness testimony, the DNA evidence, the security camera footage. They are the reasons given. Just like conclusions, premises often have their own indicator words. Get these into your head too, because since, for, given that, for the reason that, the CEO deserves a bonus because the company's profits have doubled. The premise? The company's profits have doubled. It's the reason why we should believe the conclusion. Now, I have to tell you the single most important rule on the entire LSAT. And if you're a natural debater or a skeptic, this is going to feel weird, but you have to embrace it. The rule is this. You must accept the premises as 100% true. For the sake of the question, the premises are undeniable, factual gospel. You are not allowed to argue with them. If a premise says, all office buildings are made of cheese, you do not say, wait, that's not true. You say, okay, great. For the next 60 seconds, all office buildings are made of cheese. What follows from that? The LSAT is not testing your knowledge of the world. It's testing your ability to assess the structure of an argument. They give you the building blocks, the premises, and your job is to see if they stack up correctly to support the roof, the conclusion. Your job is not to question the quality of the blocks themselves. This is a huge mental shift. You're moving from a real-world debater to a pure logician. So if you see a premise that says, anyone who wears a blue hat can read minds, you accept it. Okay, blue hat wearers are telepathic. Got it. Now what are you trying to prove with that bizarre fact? This is how you stay focused on what actually matters for the question. Let's put this all together. Let's deconstruct a real LSAT-style argument. Here it is. The new traffic light installed at the intersection of Maple and Oak has been a disaster. Since the light was installed, the average commute time for residents on Maple Street has increased by 15%. Furthermore, the number of accidents at that intersection has doubled. Consequently, the city should remove the traffic light. Okay, the first step always is to hunt for the conclusion. Do we see any indicator words? Scan the text. Yes, right at the end. Consequently, that's one of our magic words. So the conclusion, the main point the author is trying to prove is, the city should remove the traffic light. That is the destination. That is the verdict. Now that we have our conclusion, everything else must be a premise offered as support. Let's identify them. Why should we believe the city should remove the light? Premise 1. Since the light was installed, the average commute time for residents on Maple Street has increased by 15%. The word since is a premise indicator, confirming this. Premise 2. The number of accidents at that intersection has doubled. The word furthermore links this as another piece of evidence. Premise 3, you could even say the first sentence, the new traffic light has been a disaster, is a sort of intermediate conclusion that also functions as a premise for the final recommendation. So let's restate the argument in its pure logical form. The author wants us to believe that the city should remove the traffic light, conclusion, because commute times are up 15%, premise 1, and accidents have doubled, premise 2. Do you see how clean that is? We've stripped away the noise and revealed the argument's skeleton. We're not debating whether commute times really went up, or if the accident report is accurate. We accept those premises as true. Our job is to analyze the connection between those premises and that conclusion. And in doing that, we've stumbled upon the most important place on the LSAT. It's not the conclusion. It's not the premises. It's the empty space between them. It's the logical leap the author makes to get from the evidence to the main point. Think about it. The author presents facts, longer commutes, more accidents, and then jumps to a solution: remove the light. Is that jump justified? Is it a tiny hop? Or is it a massive, unsupported leap across a canyon? This space, this gap between premise and conclusion, is where almost every single LSAT question lives. It's where the assumptions are hiding. It's where the flaws in reasoning occur. It's where the arguments can be strengthened or weakened. Learning to identify the conclusion and the premises is like learning to see the two cliffs. But learning to see the gap between them, that's like learning to see the invisible bridge the author thinks exists. And your job as a test breaker is to inspect that bridge, to see if it's solid, or if it's about to crumble. Now that you can see the argument skeleton, the conclusion, and the premises, we're going to learn how to spot the fatal flaw, the crack in the logic. We're going to talk about assumptions, the invisible glue holding these arguments together, and how finding them is like having a superpower on test day. So let's talk about that superpower. It's called the negation technique, but before we get to the how, we have to understand the what. What is an assumption in the world of the LSAT? Because it's not what you think. In everyday life, an assumption is just something we take for granted. You assume the coffee shop will be open. You assume your friend will text you back. It's a guess. A belief. On the LSAT, an assumption is something far more powerful and precise. It is an unstated premise, a piece of information that is not written down, but which is absolutely 100% necessary for the conclusion to be true. Think of it this way. An argument is a bridge. The premises are the pillars on one side of a canyon. The conclusion is the other side of the canyon you want to get to. The LSAT test maker builds this bridge, but they deliberately leave out a critical support beam. The bridge looks like it connects, but if you actually tried to drive a truck over it, the truck of logic, it would collapse into the canyon below. That missing support beam? That's the necessary assumption. It's the piece that must be there for the bridge to stand. Without it, the premises don't actually support the conclusion. They're just pillars on one side, and a destination on the other, with nothing but air in between. So how do you find this invisible, necessary piece? You become a demolition expert. You test the argument's stability. This is where the negation technique comes in. It's the single most important tool you will learn for logical reasoning. Here's how it works. You take a potential assumption, say one of the answer choices, and you flip it. You make it its opposite. You negate it. If the original argument falls apart, if it becomes nonsensical, if the conclusion no longer follows at all after you've negated that statement, then congratulations. You just found the necessary assumption. You found the critical support beam by seeing what happens when you take it away. Let's use a dead simple example. Imagine an argument. Premise: the car has a full tank of gasoline. Conclusion: therefore the car will start. Simple enough, right? But there's a gap. A huge gap. What's the invisible glue holding this together? Let's look at a potential assumption. The car's battery is not dead. Is this a necessary assumption? Let's apply the negation technique. Let's become demolition experts. We negate the statement. The opposite of the car's battery is not dead is, the car's battery is dead. Now let's plug that negated statement back into our original argument and see if the bridge still stands. Premise: the car has a full tank of gasoline. New information: our negated assumption, the car's battery is dead. Conclusion: therefore the car will start. Does that make any sense? No. It's ridiculous. The argument is completely destroyed. The conclusion is now impossible. Because wrecking the argument by negating the statement proved its importance, we now know with absolute certainty that the car's battery is not dead was a necessary assumption. It was the missing piece the argument couldn't live without. Let's try another potential assumption. What about, the car is painted blue? Okay, let's negate it. The car is not painted blue. Let's plug it in. Premise: the car has a full tank of gasoline. New information: the car is not painted blue. Conclusion: therefore the car will start. Does this new information hurt the argument? Does it weaken it in any way? No, it's completely irrelevant. The car's ability to start has nothing to do with its color. So, the car is painted blue is not a necessary assumption. Taking it away does nothing. The bridge stands just fine without it. This technique is your skeleton key. Because once you understand how to identify the central, necessary assumption of an argument, you haven't just learned how to answer assumption questions. You've unlocked the secret to a huge portion of the entire logical reasoning section. Think about it. What is a weakened question asking you to do? It's asking you to attack the argument. And what's the most effective way to attack an argument? You find that critical, unstated assumption, that wobbly support beam, and you kick it out. A correct answer to a weakened question is often just a statement that attacks a necessary assumption. For our car example, a perfect weakener would be, the car's battery was drained overnight by the headlights being left on. It directly attacks the assumption that the battery is functional. What about a strengthened question? It's the exact opposite. You're asked to help the argument. How do you do that? You find that wobbly, unstated assumption and you add a steel reinforcement plate to it. You confirm it. A correct answer to a strengthened question often validates a necessary assumption. A great strengthener for our car argument would be, a mechanic certified this morning that the car's battery, engine, and starter are all in perfect working order. It fills the logical gap, making the conclusion much more likely. And flaw questions? They're often just asking you to describe why the argument is weak in the first place. And what is the most common reason an LSAT argument is flawed? It's because it relies on a major, unproven assumption. The flaw is that the author takes for granted that the battery isn't dead, without providing any evidence. One skill, finding the necessary assumption, is the key to dominating multiple question types. Let's try a more LSAT-style argument. The City of Riverville's new Go Green recycling program has been a massive success. In the year since the program was implemented, the total amount of landfill waste generated by the city has decreased by 20%. Clearly, the Go Green program was effective at reducing Riverville's landfill-bound trash. Okay, looks good on the surface. Premise: program started and waste went down. Conclusion: the program caused the waste to go down. What's the gap? What's the invisible glue? The author is assuming a cause and effect relationship. They are assuming that the Go Green program was the reason for the decrease and that nothing else was. So a potential necessary assumption would be, some other event or factor was not the real cause of the decrease in landfill waste. Let's be demolition experts. Apply the negation technique. Negated version: some other event or factor was the real cause of the decrease in landfill waste. Now let's see if the argument survives. If some other factor was the real cause, let's say Riverville's largest factory, which produced most of its waste, shut down 6 months ago. Does the conclusion still hold? Does it still follow that the Go Green program was clearly effective? No. The argument is shattered. The conclusion becomes completely unsupported. If the factory closing is what reduced the waste, then we have no idea if the recycling program did anything at all. It might have been a total failure. By negating the statement, we destroyed the argument. And that is how we know with 100% confidence that some other event was not the real cause, is a core necessary assumption of this argument. This is the mindset. You are not a passive reader. You are an active interrogator of the text. Every time you read an argument, you must ask, what are you not telling me? What leap in logic are you making? What invisible belief must be true for your conclusion to even be possible? Finding that belief is your first job. And the negation technique is the tool you use to confirm you found the right one. It separates the truly necessary assumptions from the merely possible ones. It turns a guessing game into a methodical process of elimination. Master this and you'll start to see the matrix of the LSAT. You'll see how arguments are built and, more importantly, how they are designed to be broken. You'll stop reading for content and start reading for structure, for gaps, for weaknesses. You'll start to see these arguments not as confusing paragraphs, but as puzzles. And you'll have the key, because almost every flawed argument on this test is flawed for the same reason. It confuses what is possible with what is necessary. It presents evidence and then leaps to a conclusion that is not fully supported. A conclusion that rests on a bed of unstated, unproven, and often shaky assumptions. Learning to spot those assumptions is like learning to see the cracks in a foundation before the house falls down. And in the next part, we're going to give names to those cracks. We're going to categorize the most common types of flawed arguments that the LSAT loves to use over and over again. We're moving from assumptions to the classic logical fallacies. And these fallacies are the LSAT's greatest hits. They're the same handful of flawed patterns, just dressed up in different clothes, question after question. Think of the test makers not as evil geniuses, but as lazy magicians. They only know a few tricks, but they perform them with such confidence and misdirection that you start to believe it's real magic. Our job is to learn the tricks. Once you see the hidden strings and the trapdoors, the magic is gone. All that's left is a predictable pattern that you can exploit for points. So let's expose the first and most famous trick in the book. This one is so common, so fundamental to flawed human thinking, that you'll see it everywhere in life once you learn to spot it. It's the confusion between correlation and causation. The argument goes like this: we notice that two things A and B happen at the same time. Therefore, thing A must be causing thing B. It sounds plausible, right? It's the foundation of a lot of scientific inquiry. But as a standalone argument, it's a gaping hole. The most famous example is this. Researchers noticed that in coastal towns, ice cream sales and shark attacks both increase during the summer months. So they conclude that buying ice cream causes shark attacks. It's absurd, right? You know instinctively that's not true. But why logically is it wrong? The LSAT demands you know why. The flaw isn't just that the conclusion is silly. The flaw is that the evidence, the correlation, is not sufficient to prove the conclusion, the causation. The argument completely ignores other possibilities. What could those be? Well, first, there could be a third factor that causes both. In our example, it's the summer heat. Hot weather makes more people go to the beach and swim, increasing the chance of a shark encounter. Hot weather also makes more people buy ice cream. The heat is the common cause for both effects. The ice cream and the shark attacks are just correlated. They have no direct causal link. Second, the causality could be reversed. Maybe B causes A. This is less likely with the shark example, but imagine an argument that says, people who are members of a country club are wealthier than the general population. Therefore, joining a country club makes you wealthy. It's far more likely the causation is reversed. Being wealthy allows you to join the country club in the first place. And third, it could just be a complete coincidence. The two things might have absolutely no relationship at all. So when you see an LSAT argument that says, A happened then B happened so A caused B, or A and B are seen together so A causes B, your brain should light up like a Christmas tree. The author has made an assumption. They assume there's no third factor cause, no reverse causation, and that it's not just a coincidence. An answer choice that points out one of these possibilities is often the key to cracking a weaken or a flaw question. For example, a stimulus might say, a recent study showed that people who read for at least 1 hour a day report lower stress levels than those who do not. Therefore, to reduce one's stress levels, one should read for at least an hour a day. What's the flaw? The argument sees a correlation, reading and low stress, and jumps to a causal conclusion. Reading causes low stress. But what if there's a third factor? Maybe people who have the time to read for an hour a day also have more leisure time in general, less demanding jobs, or more financial security. That could be the real cause of their low stress. The reading is just a symptom of a less stressful life. That's the crack in the foundation. Now let's move to the second trick in the Lazy Magician's Handbook, the faulty analogy. This is the classic apples to oranges comparison. The argument tries to prove a point about one thing by comparing it to another. The structure is, A is like B. B has property X. Therefore, it must also have property X. This can be a perfectly valid way to argue, but only if A and B are actually similar in the ways that matter for the conclusion. The LSAT loves to build arguments where the two things being compared have critical differences that the author conveniently ignores. Imagine a friend says to you, I'm thinking of getting a pet tiger. My neighbor has a pet cat, and it's tame, friendly, and easy to take care of. Since tigers are just big cats, my pet tiger will be just as tame and easy to care for. You would hopefully tell your friend this is a terrible idea. Why? Because the analogy is flawed. Yes, tigers and house cats are both felines, but the differences between them, size, strength, wild instincts, are far more relevant to their suitability as pets than their similarities. The argument falls apart because the comparison is bad. On the LSAT, this will look more academic. For instance, the nation of Zenobia successfully stimulated its economy by cutting taxes for its largest corporations. Therefore, the nation of Belandia should also cut taxes for its largest corporations if it wishes to stimulate its economy. This argument assumes that Zenobia and Belandia are similar enough for the same policy to work in both places. But what if they aren't? What if Zenobia has an economy based on manufacturing, while Belandia's is based on tourism? What if Zenobia was in a period of economic growth, while Belandia is in a deep recession? What if Zenobia's corporations reinvested their tax savings, while Belandia's are known to just pay out dividends to shareholders? Any of these differences could shatter the analogy and destroy the argument. When you spot a comparison on the LSAT, your job is to play skeptic. Ask yourself, are these two things, these cities, companies, policies, time periods, really comparable in the ways that matter? The author assumes they are. The flaw is that they might not be. This brings us to our third classic fallacy, the part-to-whole fallacy. This is a simple but sneaky error in reasoning. The argument assumes that because something is true of the parts of a whole, it must also be true of the whole itself. The classic example is a sports team. Every player on the all-star team is the best player at their position. Therefore, the all-star team is the best team in the league. Is that necessarily true? Not at all. Maybe these individual superstars have huge egos and can't play together. Maybe their individual styles clash. A team of good players with great chemistry might easily beat a team of superstars with no chemistry. The quality of the parts, the individual players, doesn't automatically guarantee the quality of the whole, the team. The LSAT will dress this up. An argument might state, every department in this company has become more efficient this year. Therefore, the company as a whole has become more efficient. It sounds right, but it's a flawed leap. What if the increased efficiency in one department, say the legal department, came from them rejecting more proposals from the research department? The legal department looks more efficient on paper, but their actions are now creating a bottleneck that slows down the entire company's innovation. The whole can be less than the sum of its parts. And don't forget, this fallacy works in reverse too. That's the whole-to-part fallacy. It assumes that what is true of the whole must be true of each individual part. Our company is, on average, very profitable. Therefore, every department within our company must be profitable. Again, this is not necessarily true. The company's overall profitability could be driven by one superstar department, while several other departments are actually losing money. So, whenever an argument shifts its focus between the micro and the macro, from an individual to a group, a part to a whole, a single component to the entire machine, be on high alert. The author is assuming that properties transfer neatly from one level to the other. And that assumption is a classic weak point, a crack in the logic just waiting to be exposed. Correlation, causation, faulty analogy, part to whole. These aren't just fancy Latin terms to memorize. They are names for the specific, predictable, and lazy assumptions the LSAT test makers rely on to build their flawed arguments. Learning to spot them is like being handed the enemy's playbook. You know what move they're going to make before they even make it. And this isn't just for flaw in the reasoning questions. Once you can identify the flaw, you can predict the answer to a weakened question. It will be the one that exploits the flaw. You can predict the answer to a strengthened question. It will be the one that patches the hole in the logic. This is the skeleton key that unlocks half the question types in the logical reasoning section. We've now identified 3 of the LSAT's favorite logical sins, but there are a few more you absolutely must know. The next one involves shifting the goalposts entirely. Instead of attacking the argument, the author attacks the person making it. It's a cheap shot, and the LSAT uses it all the time. And we're going to break it down piece by piece. This is the classic ad hominem fallacy, a Latin term that translates to the person. And it is, without a doubt, one of the most tempting, most common, and most fundamentally flawed ways to argue, not just on the LSAT but in everyday life. The test makers know this. They know it's a cognitive shortcut our brains love to take. So they build questions specifically designed to trap you with it. So what is it, exactly? An ad hominem fallacy occurs when you reject or dismiss an argument based on some irrelevant fact about the person presenting it. Instead of engaging with the logic, the evidence, or the reasoning of the claim, you attack the person's character, their motives, or their circumstances. You essentially say, I don't have to listen to your argument because you are a bad, biased, or hypocritical person. Think about it this way. If a man who has been divorced 3 times gives you marital advice, is that advice automatically bad? No. He might have learned a lot from his mistakes. His personal history doesn't invalidate the potential wisdom of his advice. The advice itself is either good or bad on its own merits. Or, a more classic example, a doctor who smokes tells you that smoking is a major cause of lung cancer. Is he wrong? Of course not. The fact that he's a hypocrite has zero bearing on the scientific validity of his statement. The argument that smoking causes cancer, and the arguer, the smoking doctor, are 2 separate things. The ad hominem fallacy wrongly conflates them. On the LSAT, This won't be as obvious as a smoking doctor. It'll be woven into a more complex scenario. Let's look at a typical structure. Imagine a stimulus that reads, Councilwoman Miller has proposed a new bill to increase funding for city libraries, arguing that it will improve literacy rates. However, Councilwoman Miller admitted last year that she hasn't read a novel in over a decade. Therefore, her proposal to increase library funding should be rejected. Let's break this down. What's the conclusion? The final sentence. Her proposal should be rejected. What's the evidence, the premise for this conclusion? The fact that Councilwoman Miller hasn't read a novel in over a decade. Now, connect the premise to the conclusion. Is the fact that she doesn't personally read novels a valid reason to reject a citywide library funding proposal? Absolutely not. The proposal's merits depend on things like budget analysis, data on literacy rates, the potential community impact, not on the councilwoman's personal reading habits. The author here has committed a classic ad hominem fallacy. They attacked the person, calling her hypocritical or unqualified by implication, instead of attacking her actual argument for the library funding. When you see a question asking to identify the flaw, the correct answer will say something like, the argument rejects a proposal on the basis of facts about the person who advocates for it, rather than on the merits of the proposal itself. It's a textbook description of the ad hominem flaw. Now let's look at a slightly more sophisticated cousin of this fallacy, one the LSAT is particularly fond of, attacking someone's motives. This is the conflict of interest version. The structure is the same, but instead of attacking a character trait, the author attacks the person's reasons for making the argument, suggesting they are biased. For example, a representative from the pharmaceutical company Pharmaco testified that their new drug is perfectly safe for public use. But of course she would say that, if this drug is approved, Pharmaco stands to make billions of dollars, and she will surely receive a massive bonus. Thus, her testimony that the drug is safe is clearly untrustworthy and should be disregarded. Let's dissect this. Conclusion: the representative's testimony should be disregarded. Premise: she has a strong financial incentive to claim the drug is safe. Is this a valid argument? Again, no. It's a flaw. While her financial motive is certainly a reason to be skeptical and to scrutinize her evidence very, very carefully, it is not, by itself, a reason to conclude her claim is false. It's entirely possible that the drug is, in fact, perfectly safe and her company will make billions. The two things are not mutually exclusive. The author hasn't presented any evidence about the drug's safety trials, its chemical composition, or its side effects. They have only presented evidence about the speaker's motive. They are attacking the person, not the argument. The flaw here is in moving from "this person has a reason to be biased" directly to "therefore, what this person is saying is false." The LSAT loves this territory because it feels so intuitive. In real life, we discount biased sources all the time. But on the LSAT, in the world of pure logic, you cannot prove a statement false simply by pointing out the speaker's bias. You still have to address the evidence for the statement itself. The answer choice for a flaw question like this would read something like, the argument confuses the truth of a claim with the motives of the person advancing it. So, how do you get fast at spotting this? You train your brain to see the disconnect. When you read a stimulus, you should be constantly asking, is the evidence actually relevant to the conclusion? In an ad hominem argument, you'll see this massive gap. The evidence is all about persona, their character, their actions, their motives. But the conclusion is about idea X, the validity of their claim, the soundness of their proposal, the truth of their statement. When you see the topic shift from the idea to the person, a giant red flag should go up in your mind. But, and this is a crucial distinction that separates 160-level scores from 170-plus scores, there is one specific situation where bringing up a person's character is logically relevant. This is the exception to the ad hominem rule, and the LSAT will test you on it. A person's character or credibility is relevant only when the argument itself is based on their authority or credibility. Let me show you the difference. Consider this argument. Dr. Evans, a leading climate scientist, has stated that her latest research indicates sea levels will rise by at least 3 feet in the next 50 years. Therefore, we should conclude that a significant sea level rise is likely. What is the evidence here? The evidence is simply that Dr. Evans, an expert, said so. The entire argument rests on her authority. Now, if someone were to reply, but Dr. Evans was recently found to have fabricated data in her previous studies, would that be an ad hominem fallacy? No, In this case, it's a perfectly valid and devastating counter-argument. Because the original argument's only support was Dr. Evans's credibility, attacking that credibility directly undermines the argument's foundation. Now compare that to this flawed version. Dr. Evans has published a study, complete with 200 pages of data and statistical analysis, that concludes sea levels will rise by 3 feet. However, Dr. Evans is known to be an arrogant and unpleasant person. Therefore, the conclusions of her study are probably wrong. See the difference? It's subtle but critical. In this second case, the argument is based on the study, the data, the analysis. The author's conclusion attacks the study, but the evidence provided is about Dr. Evans's personality. Her being arrogant is completely irrelevant to whether her statistical analysis is correct. This is a true ad hominem fallacy. The first example was a valid attack on a source of authority. The second was a flawed attack on a person's character. Understanding this distinction is key to mastering flaw questions. So, to recap, the core ad hominem fallacy is rejecting an argument by attacking the person who makes it. Look for evidence about a person's character, past actions, or motives being used to invalidate their actual argument, proposal, or claim. Remember that a vested interest or bias is not enough on its own to prove a conclusion is false. And finally, always check if the argument is based on evidence and data, or if it's based entirely on the authority of the speaker. That will tell you whether an attack on the speaker is a cheap shot or a legitimate logical rebuttal. Once you've mastered identifying attacks on the person, you need to be ready for an even more deceptive tactic. When the author doesn't attack the person, but instead attacks a twisted, distorted, and weakened version of their argument. It's like building a scarecrow, knocking it down, and claiming you defeated a real opponent. It's called the straw man fallacy, and it's one of the most insidious tricks in the LSAT playbook. And spotting this fallacy in the wild on the LSAT is a superpower. Because the test makers know it's tempting, they'll present you with an argument in the stimulus, and then in the answer choices, they'll offer up a beautifully crafted, highly critical attack on an argument that was never actually made. And your brain, eager to find a flaw, will jump at it. Let's see it in action. Imagine a stimulus that says, the city's plan to reduce traffic by adding a $5 toll to the main bridge is flawed. A recent study showed that a similar toll in a neighboring city only reduced traffic by 2%. Therefore, the plan will not solve our traffic problem. Okay, a simple argument. Premise: a similar toll elsewhere had a small effect. Conclusion: this plan won't solve the problem. Now, imagine an answer choice for a weakened question that says, the argument fails to consider that completely eliminating traffic is an unrealistic goal for any major city. Do you see the trick? It sounds smart, sounds critical, but it's a straw man. The original argument never claimed the goal was to completely eliminate traffic. It claimed the plan wouldn't solve the traffic problem. The answer choice has exaggerated the original argument's position into an absurd, easily defeated one. You must eliminate all traffic, and then attacks that. It's a shiny, distracting object designed to make you look away from the real argument. The real weaknesses might be things like, are the two cities actually comparable? Was the small 2% reduction actually considered a success in the other city? Those are attacks on the real argument. The straw man is an attack on a ghost. Your defense against this is precision. You must hold the original argument in your mind with absolute clarity. What is the exact conclusion? What are the exact premises supporting it? Don't let the test makers or an answer choice nudge you into accepting a slightly different, slightly more extreme, slightly more ridiculous version of what was said. You are a logical surgeon, and your scalpel is precision. You must cut away the fallacious answer choices, and the straw man is often the most tempting one to leave behind. But fallacies aren't just about misrepresenting another person's argument. Sometimes, the flaw is baked right into the foundation of the argument itself. It's a flaw in the author's own perception of reality. And this one is everywhere. It's in the news, it's in advertisements, it's in our own daily assumptions. And on the LSAT, it's a goldmine for difficult questions. Let's talk about ice cream and crime. It is a well-documented statistical fact that on days when ice cream sales are high, the rate of violent crime also increases. The two numbers go up together. They are correlated. So what's the conclusion? Does eating ice cream make people violent? Does the sugar rush from a scoop of chocolate chip cookie dough turn law-abiding citizens into criminals? Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe committing crimes gives people a craving for a nice cold dessert. course, both of those conclusions are absurd, but they follow a pattern of reasoning the LSAT loves to exploit. It's the mistake of assuming that because two things happen at the same time, one must be causing the other. This is the correlation-causation fallacy. The real reason, of course, is a third factor that causes both. It's the heat. On hot summer days, more people are outside, more people are irritable, and more people are buying ice cream. The heat is the common cause for both the rise in ice cream sales and the rise in crime. The ice cream and the crime are merely correlated. They are effects of the same cause, not the cause of each other. The LSAT will present you with this exact structure, just dressed up in more academic language. They'll tell you that a study found a strong correlation between the number of books in a child's home and their scores on standardized tests. The author will then leap to the conclusion, therefore, to improve a child's test scores, we should simply give them more books. And your job is to see the flaw. You have to be the one to raise your hand and say, wait a minute, is it possible that the books themselves aren't the cause? Could there be a third factor? Something that causes both the presence of books and the high test scores? What could it be? Maybe parents who value education tend to buy more books, and they also tend to create a home environment that fosters learning in other ways, leading to higher test scores. Maybe families with higher incomes can afford more books, and they can also afford tutors, better schools, and other resources that boost test scores. The books aren't the magic bullet. They're just a symptom, an indicator, of an underlying environment that is the true cause. Whenever you see an argument on the LSAT that says, A is correlated with B, therefore a cause is B, your alarm bells should be screaming. You need to immediately start thinking of alternative explanations. The test makers are banking on you just nodding along and accepting the causal claim. Your job is to challenge it. There are three main ways to challenge a correlation-causation claim. First, is there a third common cause? This is the ice cream and crime example. The heat causes both. This is the books and test scores example. The educational environment or income level causes both. Second, could the causation be reversed? The argument claims a cause is B, but is it possible that B actually causes A? For example, an argument might state, a study of successful entrepreneurs found that they all read at least one business book per week. Therefore, reading business books leads to entrepreneurial success. Could the causation be reversed? Maybe becoming a successful entrepreneur creates the need and the desire to read business books to stay on top of your game. The success caused the reading, not the other way around. And third, could the correlation be a complete coincidence? Sometimes, two things just happen to trend together with no causal relationship at all. There's a famous, hilarious set of charts online showing absurd correlations, like the divorce rate in Maine being almost perfectly correlated with the per capita consumption of margarine. Does margarine cause divorce? Does divorce make you crave margarine? No, it's just a statistical fluke. On the LSAT, this is less common than the other two, but it's still a possibility. The link might just not be there at all. So, when you spot that correlation in the stimulus, and you see that author making the leap to causation in the conclusion, you are in a position of power. If it's a weakened question, you look for an answer choice that introduces one of these alternative explanations. An answer that suggests a third cause, or that the causation is reversed. If it's a strengthened question, you do the opposite. You look for an answer choice that eliminates one of these alternative explanations. An answer that says, a recent study controlled for income level and found the correlation still held, which would make the original conclusion stronger by ruling out a potential third cause. This framework, spot the correlation to causation leap, then brainstorm the alternatives, is not just a trick. It's a fundamental tool for critical thinking. The LSAT isn't just testing if you can read. It's testing if you can think. It's testing if you can resist the easy, intuitive conclusion and probe for a deeper, more logical explanation. The straw man fallacy is about not being fooled by a misrepresentation of an argument. The correlation-causation fallacy is about not being fooled by a misrepresentation of reality itself. But what happens when the argument isn't misrepresenting something, but is instead built on a foundation of pure ambiguity? What happens when the very words themselves become the trap? That's where we find the sneakiest, most subtle flaws of all, where a single word used in two different ways can bring a whole argument crashing down. This is the flaw of equivocation. It's a verbal sleight of hand, a logical bait and switch. It's where the arguer uses a key term that has two or more different meanings, and they use it as if it means the same thing throughout the entire argument. They build a bridge between two ideas using a word as a plank. But because the word means one thing on one side and something entirely different on the other, the plank isn't connected to anything. The moment you put any weight on it, the whole thing collapses into the chasm of invalidity. Let's start with a simple, almost silly example to see the mechanics in action. Consider this argument. A feather is light. What is light cannot be dark. Therefore, a feather cannot be dark. Now that sounds weird. But why? Your brain immediately flags it as wrong, but the LSAT demands you know precisely why it's wrong. The flaw is the word light. In the first premise, a feather is light. The word light means of little weight. In the second premise, what is light cannot be dark. The word light means illumination or pale in color. The argument treats these two completely different concepts, weight and color, as if they are the same, simply because we use the same five-letter word to describe them. The conclusion that a feather can't be dark is nonsense. There are plenty of dark-colored feathers that are also light in weight. The argument only appears to be valid because of this deliberate, deceptive shift in meaning. Of course, the LSAT won't make it this obvious. They won't use simple words with concrete meanings like light. Oh no, they prey on the abstract. They use the grand, important-sounding words that we all think we understand, but whose definitions are slippery and context-dependent. Words like right, value, authority, public interest, or law. These are the words that form the battlegrounds of philosophy, politics, and law, and they are the perfect camouflage for the flaw of equivocation. Let's look at a more sophisticated LSAT-style trap. Imagine a stimulus that reads, "Prominent scientists are a crucial authority in any well-functioning society, as their expertise guides critical policy decisions. However, a society can only function if its citizens respect the authority of the state and its laws. Therefore, for society to function well, citizens are obligated to respect the policy decisions guided by these prominent scientists." Did you feel that? The almost imperceptible shift? The argument feels plausible, sounds reasonable. It connects scientists and the state and citizen obligation, but it's built on a lie. The lie is the word authority. In the first sentence, authority is used to mean expert or a reliable source of information. When we say someone is an authority on astrophysics, we mean they know a lot about it. It's about knowledge. But in the second sentence, authority is used to mean power or the right to command and enforce obedience. The authority of the state is its legitimate power to make and enforce laws. It's about governance. The argument takes these two distinct meanings, authority as expertise and authority as power, and mashes them together. It concludes that because you should respect the state's power to govern, you must therefore respect the scientist's expertise as if it were a command. It's a brilliant deception. It creates a logical link where none exists. The duty to obey a law is fundamentally different from the intellectual consideration you might give to an expert's opinion. By equivocating on the word authority, the argument tricks you into thinking they are the same. So how do you become a hunter for this flaw? How do you spot this verbal camouflage on a high-pressure time test? You have to train yourself to become hyper-aware of the core terms of an argument. Specifically, look for abstract nouns that appear in a premise, and then reappear in another premise or in the conclusion. When you see one, a little red flag should go up in your mind. Pause. Interrogate that word. Ask yourself, does this word mean the exact same thing in every instance it's used? Don't just assume it does. Play devil's advocate with yourself. Could it possibly mean something else? Let's try another one, this time even more subtle. The purpose of a modern corporation is to create value for its stakeholders. A vibrant art scene, by enriching the community and fostering creativity, provides immense value to a city's residents. Therefore, corporations should be required to heavily invest in the local art scene. Again, this has the ring of truth to it. It sounds like a positive, civic-minded argument, but it's broken. The fatal flaw is the word value. In the first premise, value for its stakeholders is a business term. It means monetary value, financial return, profit, increased share price. It's a quantifiable economic concept. In the second premise, immense value to a city's residents refers to something completely different. It means cultural, aesthetic, or social value. The enrichment you feel from a beautiful painting or a powerful play. This kind of value is subjective, qualitative, and not easily measured in dollars and cents. The conclusion then commits the classic sin of equivocation. It takes the corporation's obligation to create financial value and claims it can be fulfilled by investing in something that creates cultural value. It's comparing apples and oranges, but calling them both fruit and pretending there's no difference. The argument's entire structure rests on this deliberate confusion. Without the ambiguous word value, to bridge the gap between corporate finance and community arts, there is no argument at all. The conclusion is completely unsupported. This is why this flaw is so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a gap in logic. It feels like a clever connection. Our brains are designed to find patterns and create links, and the LSAT exploits this by creating false links using ambiguous language. It's a test of your mental discipline. Can you slow down enough to see that the bridge everyone else is walking across is actually just a mirage? So your new mantra is this: track the key terms. When a critical word is repeated, especially an abstract one, put it under a microscope. Define it for its first use. Define it for its second use. If those definitions don't match perfectly, you've found the flaw. You've spotted the equivocation. You've seen the magic trick for what it is. A simple but elegant deception. This skill transcends the LSAT. You see this flaw every single day in political speeches, in advertisements, in news commentary. People argue about rights without defining if they mean a legal right, a moral right, or a natural right. Companies sell you products that are natural, a word that can mean anything from found in nature to healthy. Two very different things. Becoming a master at spotting equivocation doesn't just make you better at this test. It makes you a clearer thinker, harder to fool, and more precise in your own reasoning. We've now seen how the LSAT can build an argument on a foundation of shifting words. The very language itself is the trap. But what happens when the words are clear, the definitions are stable, but the numbers themselves are the illusion? What happens when an argument presents you with what looks like cold, hard mathematical proof, but it's actually a statistical lie designed to lead you to an impossible conclusion? That's where we go next, into the world of numbers, percentages, and the art of twisting data. Imagine two towns, Greenfield and Meadowville. A politician stands up and declares, "We must address the crime wave in Greenfield." Last year, the number of violent crimes committed by teenagers in Greenfield increased by a staggering 100%. In Meadowville, it only increased by 10%. Clearly, Greenfield has a far more serious problem with teen violence. The crowd gasps. The headlines write themselves. But you, the future lawyer, you lean back and you ask the one question that unravels the entire argument. A percentage of what? What if I told you that the year before, Greenfield, a tiny peaceful village, had exactly one violent crime committed by a teenager? A 100% increase means they had 2. Meanwhile, Meadowville, a sprawling city, had 100 such crimes. A 10% increase means they had an additional 10 crimes, for a total of 110. Who has the bigger problem? The town with 2 incidents, or the city with 110? This is the LSAT's favorite numerical shell game. It's the fallacy of confusing relative values, percentages, proportions, fractions, with absolute values, the raw, concrete numbers. They know we are emotionally swayed by a phrase like, a 100% increase. It sounds catastrophic, but without knowing the underlying number, the percentage is meaningless. It's a ghost. It has no substance. Whenever you see a percentage or a proportion in an LSAT question, your brain needs to set off a little alarm. The question you must immediately ask is, what's the total? Is a 50% market share impressive? Well, if the total market is 10 people buying lemonade on a street corner, not so much. If it's the global smartphone market, it's earth-shattering. The percentage tells you the slice, but it tells you absolutely nothing about the size of the pie. They'll use this to compare two things like our towns. They'll say Company A had a greater percentage increase in profit than Company B, so Company A must be more profitable. Not necessarily. A 10% increase on $1 billion of profit is $100 million. A 500% increase on $1 of profit is $5. Don't be fooled. The LSAT is testing whether you can distinguish between the map and the territory, between the description of the number and the number itself. And this deception doesn't stop with percentages. Let's talk about the word average. Sounds so simple, so average. But in the hands of a test maker, it's a weapon of mass confusion. Consider this argument. The new CEO at TechCorp is a huge success. Since she took over last year, the average employee's salary has skyrocketed from $60,000 to $150,000. She is clearly invested in the well-being of all her workers. Sounds pretty great, right? You'd want to work there. But what if the company has 10 employees? And last year, all 10 employees made $60,000. The average was indeed $60,000. But this year, the CEO laid off one employee and kept the salaries of the other 8 exactly the same, at $60,000. Then she paid herself a bonus of over $1 million. Let's do the math. 8 employees at $60,000 is $480,000. Add in the CEO's, let's say, $1 million salary. The total payroll is now almost $1.5 million divided by 9 people. The average salary is now over $150,000. Did the well-being of the typical worker improve? Absolutely not. 8 out of 9 people saw no change and 1 person lost their job. The argument uses the average, specifically the mean, to create a completely false picture of reality. It hides the outlier, the CEO's massive salary, which drags the average way up. The LSAT knows that when we hear average, we think of typical. But the mathematical mean isn't always typical. A more honest number would have been the median, the salary in the exact middle of the list. In this case, the median salary is still $60,000. The argument is a lie, wrapped in a technically true statistic. So when you see the word average, you have to ask, is this a mean, a median, or a mode? And could an extreme outlier be distorting the picture? This leads us to the third pillar of numerical nonsense, the bias sample. This is where the argument takes a small, unrepresentative group and tries to pass it off as the voice of the entire world. A new survey proves that Americans are losing interest in professional sports. We surveyed attendees at the National Poetry Convention, and a full 90% said they hadn't watched a single professional sports game in the past year. This is so obviously flawed it's almost funny. But in the pressure of the LSAT with more complex language, it can be easy to miss. You cannot survey a group of poets about sports and then make a conclusion about all Americans. The sample is fundamentally biased. It doesn't represent the whole. The LSAT will dress this up. They'll say things like, we surveyed over 1,000 people who responded to an online poll. Stop right there. Who responds to online polls? People who are online, and people who feel strongly enough about the topic to click and vote. It's a self-selecting sample. It's not a random, representative slice of the population. Or they'll say, in a study conducted in the city of Centerville, researchers found that people who drink green tea every day have lower rates of heart disease. Therefore, to lower your risk of heart disease, you should drink green tea. What's the problem? The study was only in Centerville. Maybe Centerville has exceptionally clean air. Maybe its residents are all genetically predisposed to health. Maybe the people who drink green tea there are also the same people who do yoga and run marathons. You cannot take a conclusion from one specific group or location and apply it to everyone everywhere. The sample size might be big, but if it's not representative, the conclusion is worthless. Now let's put it all together and face the final boss of LSAT numbers games. This one is the most counterintuitive, the one that trips up even the sharpest minds. It's called the base rate fallacy. Imagine there's a rare disease that only affects 1 in every 10,000 people. So, the base rate of this disease is incredibly low. Now, a new test is developed to detect it. The test is fantastic. It's 99% accurate. This means if you have the disease, it will correctly say positive 99% of the time. And if you don't have the disease, it will correctly say negative 99% of the time. You take the test. Comes back positive. The question is, what is the likelihood that you actually have the disease? Your gut, your intuition screaming from years of school says, well, the test is 99% accurate, so it's 99% likely I have it. And you would be completely, utterly wrong. Think about it with a huge population. Let's say we test 1 million people. How many people actually have the disease? 1 in 10,000. So, out of 1 million people, only 100 people truly have it. When we test these 100 sick people, the 99% accurate test will correctly identify 99 of them. So we have 99 true positives. Now what about the other people? There are 999,900 healthy people. The test is 99% accurate, which means it has a 1% error rate. It will give a false positive 1% of the time. What is 1% of 999,900? It's 9,999. So, we have nearly 10,000 false positives. Let's review. In our pool of people who tested positive, we have 99 people who actually have the disease, and 9,999 people who are perfectly healthy. If you are in that pool of positive tests, are you 99% likely to be sick? No. You are overwhelmingly more likely to be one of the healthy people who got a false positive. In fact, your chance of actually having the disease is less than 1%. This is the base rate fallacy. It's our tendency to ignore the original underlying probability, the base rate, and focus only on the new specific information like the test result. The LSAT uses this to build incredibly tempting wrong answers. They'll give you a statistic about a subgroup and a conclusion about an individual from that subgroup, knowing you'll forget to consider how big that subgroup was in the first place. So, the grand takeaway for all numerical reasoning is this: be a skeptic. Every number is telling a story, and your job is to figure out if it's a true story or a work of fiction. When you see a percentage, ask, of what total? When you see an average, ask, could an outlier be hiding the truth? When you see a study or a survey, ask, is the sample truly representative? And when you're given a specific probability, don't forget to ask, what was the original underlying probability to begin with? By training yourself to ask these questions, you defuse the LSAT's numerical traps. You see the argument not for the intimidating wall of data it pretends to be, but for the flimsy house of cards it truly is. But there's a deeper, more fundamental flaw that underpins so many of these arguments, one that has nothing to do with numbers at all. It's about cause and effect. It's about our brain's desperate, hardwired need to believe that if two things happen together, one must have caused the other. The rooster crows and the sun rises. Therefore, the rooster's crow causes the sunrise. This mistake is so common, so primal, that the LSAT has built an entire category of questions around it. And learning to spot it is like gaining a logical superpower. How do we untangle correlation from causation? That's where we're going next. The first step is to recognize that the human brain is a causation-seeking machine. We are hardwired to find patterns, to connect the dots, to believe that if B follows A, then A must have caused B. It's a survival instinct. Our ancestors saw rustling in the bushes, then a lion appeared. They didn't just see a correlation, they inferred a cause and they ran. This instinct keeps us safe in the wild, but on the LSAT, it makes us vulnerable. The test makers know this. They exploit this cognitive shortcut relentlessly. So, how do we build a defense? We start by treating every causal claim with extreme suspicion. When an LSAT author concludes that one thing causes another, you don't just nod along. You become a detective. You stop and you ask yourself 3 critical questions. Master these 3 questions, and you will dismantle the vast majority of causal flaws the LSAT can throw at you. Let's imagine a simple argument. A study finds that cities with more firefighters per capita also have a higher rate of severe fire damage. The author's conclusion: to reduce fire damage, we should hire fewer firefighters. Now, your gut tells you this is absurd, but your LSAT brain needs to know precisely why it's absurd. This is where our 3 questions come in. Question number 1. Could the causality be reversed? The argument claims a cause is B, but is it possible that B actually causes A? In our firefighter example, does severe fire damage cause more firefighters to be present? Absolutely. Large, dangerous fires, the severe damage, are the very reason a large number of firefighters are dispatched to the scene. The conclusion has the arrow of causation pointing in the exact wrong direction. On the LSAT, this looks like this. An argument might claim that people who regularly read business magazines are more likely to be successful executives. The implied conclusion is that reading the magazines leads to success. But what if the causality is reversed? What if being a successful executive, B, is what gives you the time, money, and motivation to read business magazines, eh? It's a classic reversal. Always ask, did they get the arrow backward? Question number 2, and this is the big one: could a third, unmentioned factor be causing both? The argument says a cause is B. But what if some hidden factor, let's call it C, is the real cause behind both A and B? This is the hidden puppet master pulling both strings. In our firefighter example, A is the number of firefighters, and B is the amount of damage. What's the third factor, C? It's the size and intensity of the fire itself. A massive fire, C, is the reason you have a lot of firefighters on the scene, A. And it's also the reason you have extensive damage, B. The firefighters aren't causing the damage, the fire is causing both. This is perhaps the most common causal flaw on the test. You see it everywhere. Ice cream sales are correlated with shark attacks. Does ice cream cause shark attacks? No. A third factor, hot summer weather, causes people to buy more ice cream and also causes more people to go swimming, which leads to more shark encounters. When you see a correlation, your first instinct should be to hunt for the hidden cause. And that brings us to question number 3. Could it just be a coincidence? The argument claims a cause is B. But what if there's no connection at all? What if it's just random chance? This is less common as the primary flaw in a difficult LSAT question, but it's still a logical possibility you must consider. For example, if a sports blogger points out that every time he wears his lucky socks, his favorite team wins, and concludes the socks cause the victory, that's a coincidence. There is no plausible mechanism connecting the two events. The universe is vast and chaotic, and sometimes, things just happen to line up without any underlying reason. While the LSAT prefers more logically robust flaws like reversal or a third cause, never forget that sometimes, the link the author is so proud of is nothing more than a statistical fluke. So you have your 3-question toolkit: reverse causality, third cause, and coincidence. This is your shield. Now let's turn it into a sword. How does this toolkit help you attack the questions and predict the answers? Think about a weekend question. If the stimulus presents a causal argument, say that a new fertilizer caused a record crop yield, the correct answer will almost certainly introduce one of our 3 alternatives. The correct answer might suggest reverse causality. Perhaps the farmers only used the expensive new fertilizer on the fields that were already the most fertile and likely to produce a high yield. Or it will introduce a third cause. Maybe that year had perfectly timed rainfall, which was the real reason for the record yield. By providing a plausible alternative explanation for the observed effect, the answer choice shatters the author's conclusion that the fertilizer was the one and only cause. You're not just looking for an answer that says, the author is wrong. You're looking for an answer that actively presents one of these 3 competing stories. Now flip it. What about a strengthened question? If the author argues that a cause is B, a strengthening answer will do the opposite. It will help rule out one of our 3 alternative explanations. An answer choice might say, the study confirmed that the increase in A happened before the increase in B, which helps fight against the possibility of reverse causality. Or it might say, the correlation between A and B held true even when scientists controlled for other potential factors like C and D, which directly combats the third cause explanation. A strengthener doesn't have to prove the conclusion is 100% true. It just has to close one of the doors that leads to an alternative explanation, making the author's proposed cause a little more likely. And what about assumption questions? This is where the framework becomes truly powerful. When an author concludes that A cause B based only on a correlation, they are fundamentally assuming that our 3 alternative explanations are not true. The author assumes the causality isn't reversed. The author assumes there is no third factor causing both. The author assumes it's not a coincidence. The correct answer to a necessary assumption question will often be a statement that eliminates one of these possibilities. It might read, no other factor was responsible for both the increase in A and the increase in B. This was something the author had to believe for their conclusion to hold up. To make this all second nature, you need to train your brain to spot the trigger. The trigger is causal language. Anytime you read words like causes, produces, leads to, results in, is an effect of, promotes, deters, is responsible for, an alarm should go off in your head. It's the causal reasoning alarm. The moment it rings, you stop, you identify the proposed cause and the proposed effect, and you immediately run through your 3-question checklist. Is it reversed? Is there a third cause? Is it a coincidence? By doing this, you're no longer a passive reader. You're an active interrogator of the text. You're not waiting for the question to tell you what the flaw is. You've already found it. You're not hoping to stumble upon the right answer. You are actively predicting its shape. The correct answer will either present one of these alternatives to weaken the argument, or rule one of them out to strengthen it. This is a profound shift in perspective. You are moving from being a victim of the LSAT's tricks to being an analyst who can see them coming from a mile away. The correlation-causation flaw isn't just a single trick. It's an entire philosophy of flawed reasoning, a deep well from which the test makers draw again and again. By mastering this single concept, you are mastering a huge portion of the logical reasoning section. You are turning the test's greatest weapon against itself. You've learned to deconstruct the argument, identify the core, and spot the most common fallacies. But there's one final layer. It's not just about the logic on the page, it's about the logic in your head. It's about building a bulletproof system for every single question you face, no matter how strange or convoluted it looks. That's the final piece of the puzzle. So let's build it. Right here, right now. This is your system. Your protocol for every one of the roughly 50 logical reasoning questions you'll face on test day. It's not a trick. It's a discipline. A 4-step process that turns chaos into order. It takes you from being a passive victim of the question to the active interrogator of it. Step 1. Identify. Before your eyes even finish reading the stimulus, you must glance down and read the question stem. I know it feels unnatural. You want to read from top to bottom, but you have to break that habit. The question stem is your mission briefing. It tells you what you're looking for, what your job is. Are you a soldier sent to strengthen a fortress? Are you a demolition expert sent to find the weakest point? Are you a detective trying to find the unstated assumption holding the whole case together? You wouldn't start a mission without knowing the objective. Don't start a question without it either. This single habit instantly frames your mind. When you read the stem, which one of the following, if true, most weakens the argument? Your brain switches to a specific frequency. You're now hunting for gaps, for leaps in logic, for alternative explanations. If you read the argument's conclusion follows logically if which one of the following is assumed, your brain engages a different protocol. You're no longer a critic. You're a collaborator, looking for the missing link that makes the whole chain of reasoning unbreakable. Identification is the master key that unlocks the correct mindset for every single question. Step 2. Deconstruct. With your mission clear, you now turn to the stimulus, the block of text at the top. This is the battlefield, and you need to map the terrain. Your job here is not to casually read. It's to dissect. You are a surgeon, and this argument is your patient. The first thing you do, find the heart. Find the conclusion. It's the entire reason the paragraph exists. It's the point the author is trying to sell you. Use those keywords we've talked about: therefore, thus, hence, so. Look for opinion and judgment. Isolate that sentence. Burn it into your mind. Everything else in that paragraph now has a new job description. It is either a premise, a piece of evidence offered in support of that conclusion, or it's background noise. You must learn to separate them with ruthless efficiency. Ask yourself, how does this piece of information attempt to support that main point? If it does, it's a premise. If it doesn't, it might be a counter-premise or just context. This deconstruction is not passive. You should be skeptical. You should be asking, okay, you're telling me this fact leads to that conclusion? Really? How? The space between that how and the author's argument, that is the gap. That is the empty space where assumptions live and flaws fester. By deconstructing, you aren't just reading the argument, you are X-raying it. You are seeing the bones beneath the skin. Step 3. Anticipate. This is the step that separates the good from the great. This is what it means to go on offense. Before you ever look at the 5 answer choices, you make a prediction. You anticipate what the correct answer will have to do, or even what it might sound like. You've identified your mission. You've deconstructed the argument and found the gap. Now you predict the answer. If the mission is to weaken the argument, you anticipate a new piece of information that would attack that gap. You think, the author assumes that because more people are buying ice cream, the new marketing campaign is a success. But what if a massive heat wave started the same week? That would weaken the argument by providing an alternative cause. That thought right there? That's your anticipation. You've just predicted the shape of the correct answer. If the mission is to find the flaw, you name the flaw in your own words. This is a correlation-causation flaw. Or the author is equivocating on the word public interest. You give it a label. For a necessary assumption question, you perform the negation test in your head on the gap you found. You think, the argument only works if they assume X. What if X were not true? The whole thing would fall apart. That X is your anticipated answer. This step is a declaration of confidence. It's you telling the test makers, I understand this so well. I know what you're going to ask me before you even show me the options. It immunizes you against the siren song of attractive, but incorrect answer choices. They might sound good, but if they don't match your anticipation, they are immediately suspect. Step 4. Execute. Now, and only now, do you descend into the 5 answer choices. But you are not a tourist browsing souvenirs. You are a special forces operator on a search and destroy mission. You have a clear target, your anticipated answer, and you are armed with the knowledge of your enemy. The 4 families of wrong answers. You will see choices that are out of scope, twisting the argument to be about something slightly different. Eliminate them. You will see choices that do the opposite of what the question asks, a choice that weakens when you need to strengthen. Eliminate them. You will see choices that are too extreme or too weak, using words like all or never, when the argument is nuanced, or some and occasionally, when a powerful impact is needed. Eliminate them. You will see choices that are irrelevant but tempting, using language from the stimulus to sound official while having no logical impact on the core argument. Eliminate them. You go through the choices one by one, holding each up to the light of your anticipation. Is it A? No, that's out of scope. Is it B? No, that's the opposite. Is it C? That looks a lot like my prediction. It introduces an alternative cause. Let me keep that. Is it D? Too weak. E? Irrelevant. And there it is. C is the answer. It's not a guess. It's a confirmation. This is execution. It's clean, it's precise, and it's fast. Identify, deconstruct, anticipate, execute. That is the system. It's your protocol for every question. It turns a 60-second frantic scramble into a 60-second controlled, tactical operation. And it works for everything. From the simplest flaw question to the most convoluted parallel reasoning argument. The process is the same. The discipline is the same. And as you practice this, something incredible starts to happen. The test changes. It stops being a series of disconnected, random puzzles designed to trick you. It becomes a conversation. You start to see the patterns. You recognize the same dozen logical flaws dressed up in different costumes about dinosaur extinction or corporate tax policy. You start to feel the rhythm of the arguments. You see the structure behind the words. You are no longer just reading sentences. You are reverse engineering the thought process of the people who write this test. This entire journey from the first video to this moment has been about one thing: transforming your perspective. It's about realizing that the LSAT is not an intelligence test. It's a skills test. It doesn't measure how smart you are. It measures how well you have trained in the specific discipline of formal logic. And like any discipline, it can be mastered. The skills you are building here are not just for getting a high score. They are the foundational skills of a great legal mind. When a partner at a law firm hands you a 1,000-page document, your ability to deconstruct, to find the core conclusion and the supporting premises, is what will allow you to make sense of it. When you're standing in front of a judge, your ability to anticipate, to predict the other side's argument and pinpoint its flaws before they even speak, is what will give you the upper hand. When you're advising a client, your ability to identify the precise legal question at hand is what will separate good advice from disastrous advice. You are not learning how to take a test. You are learning how to think. You are forging a new mind. A mind that is precise, skeptical, analytical, and rigorous. A mind that does not accept claims at face value. A mind that demands evidence. A mind that understands the deep structure of an argument and can distinguish a valid inference from a seductive fallacy. So as you move forward from here, I want you to make one final mental shift. Stop thinking of yourself as a student studying for the LSAT. Start thinking of yourself as an apprentice lawyer, and the logical reasoning section is your first client. It's a complex case filled with faulty evidence, unsubstantiated claims, and misleading testimony. Your job is not to be intimidated by it. Your job is to take it apart piece by piece with the tools we have discussed. Your job is to be the smartest person in the room, to see the things that others miss, to approach every single question not with fear, but with a cold, clear, and confident analytical precision. The path to a 170+ score is paved with this discipline. It's about turning theory into practice one question at a time until the protocol becomes second nature. Until you can identify, deconstruct, anticipate, and execute in your sleep. You have the tools. You have the blueprint. The rest is just work. This test is not a monster hiding in the dark. It is a machine, and you have just been given the schematic. Now go and take it apart.